Right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our new EMI seminar. Today, we have as our host Professor Carol Griffiths, and she is going to talk about a topic which I find quite interesting. I haven't really read much about it before, which is teacher burnout in EMI. And before we start, I just want to remind you that as most of our seminars, this one is being recorded. So if you would prefer not to have your voice or your face recorded, you're absolutely free to turn off your cameras. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end of this. You can turn on your cameras then. If you don't want to be recorded, you can just type your question in the chat. Because the chat is not being recorded, we will just read the questions from there, right? But yeah, that's really all I had to say. Professor Griffiths, the floor is yours. Thank you again so much for your availability.
Okay, we're ready to start, are we? You,
Yeah,
you want,
yeah.
you want me to go? Sorry. All right, all right. Well, hello everybody, and thank you for joining us. And I'm talking to you from Cyprus. Extremely hot here, and although some of you may think that sounds pretty good, believe me, the heat is really very hard to cope with, especially if you're not actually on a holiday, it's sort of day after day, and you have to live with this heat. But anyway, one must not complain. I have got the air conditioner on, but it's still hot. Is the air conditioner okay? Sometimes the air conditioner is quite noisy. Is it okay? You can hear me all right?
I can't really hear the air conditioning, so it seems to be fine. Yeah.
Oh, okay, well, I'll leave the air conditioner on as long as I can, because otherwise it really just gets so hot. All right. Anyway, okay. Teacher burnout in English as a medium of instruction. I did give a talk previously to ELINET about English as a medium of instruction, and I'll sort of go over some of what I said before to remind people, or in cases. But then also the issue of burnout. I have recently published an edited book on the issue of burnout. It's something that I actually feel very committed to. I do really think that we teachers have a very hard life, okay, and more about that. And also, as for the English as a medium of instruction, I will be talking especially about burnout as it applies. There is a study in the book about burnout among English as a medium of instruction. So tying these sort of two ideas together. So now just I've sort of got this right across the middle of my screen, so I need to move it, I think. All right. Okay. Anyway, I mean, imagine you don't need to be told. Teaching is very widely recognized as a very, I mean, I'm assuming most of you who are likely to join will be teachers, so you know what I'm talking about. It's a very high level of attrition, which is getting to be a huge problem just literally all over the world. It's not even just in one place. In other words, teachers are leaving at an alarming rate, leaving classes without teachers, and also the teachers that actually are there are overloaded, even more than they might have been otherwise, because so many, and their classes get bigger, they lose any free periods they might have, and so on. Sorry about that. So yeah, many teachers don't get past even their first year. This one, which is in the book on the Burnout book, Sir Alpin Griffiths, Ekrem was a student of mine. He was a master's student, and then he got a job. There were three of them actually from our master's class, who got a job in this same school. And of the three, Ephraim was the only one who actually got through to the end of the year and who intended to stay. In other words, the attrition rate, I mean, there's actually 66%, isn't it? I think there's someone waiting to be admitted, by the way, Paolo. Lila, no. Well, can I admit this person? No. Seems
No worries, I took care of it.
okay. I mean, even if they're a little late, hopefully it's nice for them to join us. Anyway, so I mean, the point I'm trying to underline and emphasize is that attrition, burnout and attrition is very high among teachers. And yet, even so, the topic, you don't get that much in the literature on it, do we? And I think it's high time we did. I do seriously think that. So the problem, what is the problem? Well, teacher attrition. It's been attributed to many different factors, including issues with professional identity. There's a lot of talk about that at the moment. Accountability policies, emotional exhaustion. I suspect there would hardly be a teacher alive who would not know what that is. And so these factors contribute to what is commonly called burnout. Now, the World Health Organization defined this actually, I thought, it's an occupational, it's not actually a medical issue, they say. It's an occupational issue. So it belongs to the job. And it's a term commonly used to describe a condition where an individual has given large amounts of energy until there's nothing left. The fire has burned out. And I sort of thought I would sort of add some little fires down the side here to hopefully sort of make the point, and also just to give a bit of visual interest, shall we say. Sorry, where's my pointed one? I mean, it has been recognized for some time. It's not new, especially among people-oriented professions such as social work, counseling, or medicine, or, of course, teaching. And then there's this very well-known inventory by Maslach and Jackson. I mean, this goes back to 1981. They categorized burnout in terms of emotional exhaustion, depersonalization, which sort of seems to mean something, you just withdraw from being, if you like, almost a human being, characterized by negative attitudes towards others. And can we all think about someone that they're always negative, they're always complaining about things? I mean, we shouldn't be, should we? We should be able to enjoy our jobs. But unfortunately, it simply isn't always the case. A reduced sense of personal accomplishment. And these are the three components of burnout. So it has been the proverbial elephant in the room. I don't know if you can see my lovely elephant. I've sort of got the attenders list across the bottom of my screen. I'm not sure about you. I mean, it's the elephant in the room. I mean, everybody knows it there. How could they not, for heaven's sake? Given the rates of attrition and so on. But nobody talks about it. Rogers suggests the reason for this may be that a teacher who's struggling hesitates to ask for assistance, to help. It makes you sound, very sort of weak and ineffective and not very good at your job. So people do hesitate. And I think maybe this is one place where we need to start. I mean, many other professions, they don't hesitate to complain about their conditions. But teachers, I don't know, somehow we seem to think we need to put up with it and just get on with the job. But yeah, I think this is changing, and frankly, I'm sorry, I think it needs to change. Sorry, what's happened to my, there it is. So, encouragingly, this conspiracy of silence seems to be lifting, as we can see from a number of recent publications. And this is my own editing book that I've edited, my own book that I just got over to the side here. From a complex systems, the idea being that I think you can't sort of say burnout is this or burnout is that, it's caused by this or it's caused by that. It's complicated. There are many different things that cause, contribute to burnout, and these all need to be considered. But there's a recent in this book. I did a study with a couple of colleagues, and we discovered that 75.8%, that's more than 3/4 of the teachers in this study. I mean, that's horrible, isn't it? 3/4 of the teachers that we work with, we talk to, we interact with, 3/4. Either they are suffering from burnout, or at least they have in the past. Maybe not right now, but maybe in the past. And I really think that, yeah, 3/4 of our teachers, either they are suffering burnout or they have at least at some stage. Contributors, well, this is sort of coming from the study I just mentioned with my colleagues. Well, okay, there are lots. There are student-related issues, such as, unmotivated students, the ones who turn up time after time, no books, no pens, no nothing, and no interest. Or even worse, they actually are badly behaved and disruptive. And I suspect we'd all know what what we're talking about there. I can think of examples in our own experience. There are parent-related issues. Parents these days can be very demanding. They're very unsupportive. Other students that I've known who've gone out teaching, they say, the parents, they don't care. I tell them that there's a problem with your student, and they say, well, you're the teacher, you fix the problem. The fact that it's actually also their child, Of course, they're not all like this, but unfortunately, there are enough to really make our job much more difficult. There are admin-related issues. The people above us, the HOD, the principal, and so on and so forth. The education department. I don't know. Sometimes the teachers seem to be the last ones to get considered about anything. There are also personal issues. We all do have personal issues. Money, for instance. We have to have a rent, we have to be able to buy food, if we have children, they have to go to school, they could eat clothes, etc., etc. Other family issues, whatever they may be, parents or whatever, or indeed health. The teaching is quite hard physically. You have to be on top of your game, don't you? Your voice gives out. Yes, teacher's voice is a very well-known phenomenon. Yeah. Well, there is, of course, contextual issues, such as whether you're teaching in a primary school or secondary school or tertiary level. Or, of course, what we're particularly talking about today is whether we're talking about English and English as a medium of instruction. And that's by no means the only one, but it's the one we're talking about today, particularly. So, English as a medium of instruction. As I say, I have talked about, and I don't know whether any of you people who are here right now have heard the previous one, but this is, it's an unstoppable train. This is Ernesto Maccaro, as he called it. But it's made its presence felt, just in every corner of the globe. And I've done, there's another book, the Practice of English, the Medium of Instruction, another edited book that I did in 2023. Sorry, I think I might have just skipped one there, The Unstoppable Train. Yes, I'm sorry, someone wanted to come in. I mean, English as a medium of instruction is such a good idea, isn't it? The idea is that instead of doing boring old grammar and stuff, students will learn the language at the same time that they're learning something more important to them, whatever it may be, whether they're doing a business degree or a science degree or a maths degree or whatever it may be. So they're going to learn the language at the same time. And this saves time and it saves money. And I mean, undeniably, it's an extremely good idea. But does it work? And what about burnout what about burnout? Now, in the the book on burnout, Yasemin, Kurtgers, and Najjar, they did one of the chapters. They point out that burnout has emerged as a serious issue for today's teachers, including those who are teaching subject courses using English as a medium of instruction. And this, of course, is not the first language, the L1, of most of the teachers, not only the students, but actually most of the teachers as well. So there is the potential for, even more struggle, perhaps, than ordinary teachers, shall we say. But as Ernesto Nakaro pointed out with his train image, English is a medium of instruction. There are many issues have been mentioned with it and written about, including in the book I mentioned. But it still carries on. I mean, there's things like, what's it doing to the local language, the local culture, these kinds of questions, which are real issues. But I don't know. I think anything I've ever read suggests that in spite of the reservations, it is continuing, not only continuing, but getting bigger all the time. Well, and yes, there are questions about how good this is, but we won't go into that maybe right now, because the fact is we've got it, and so the issue is, how do we deal with it? Anyway, this study by Griffiths and Najjar, they used a qualitative case study design to gain comprehensive insights into EMI teachers' perceptions. And they conducted in-depth interviews with multiple EMI teachers. And they tried to they investigated real-life cases of burnout and to understand the contextual factors. So these are the participants. There were 9, 7 males and 2 females. 6 teachers, 6 of them had 7 to 15 years experience. They were aged 32 to 38. And the other 3 had 30 to 35 years experience. They were aged 65 to 70. And there were varied fields of expertise that they were teaching. Sorry, I just got this thing sitting, yes, across here. Yeah, so the 7 were in the social sciences and 2 were in engineering. Okay, but teaching it in English. And the research questions that they worked to in this study number 1, do English as a medium of instruction, EMI teachers experience burnout? Is there a difference in the degree of burnout in relation to years of experience? Does teaching subject courses through EMI lead to burnout, in contrast to teaching through the medium of the first language? What factors lead to burnout? And what strategies do EMI teachers apply to overcome? So there were the 5 questions that they researched. Right. And the results, do EMI teachers experience burnout? There were 2 who explicitly reported feeling burnout. That's like 22%. The remaining 7 did not acknowledge experience burnout, though some acknowledged discomfort, as they put it, stemming from various work challenges. Sorry, I'm just turned the fan off beside me, but I'm starting to feel the heat. All right, so the answer to research question 1 is yes. 2 out of the 9. I'll discuss these. For now, I'll just give you the results and then I'll discuss them in a minute. The second, is there a difference in relation to years of experience? The researchers, none of the teachers with 30 to 35 years experience reported experiencing burnout. So, the absence of burnout among long-term faculty may suggest that extensive engagement in their roles has allowed them to develop effective resilience. Or perhaps the fact is that in order to get to maybe 35 years, maybe for whatever reason, but we'll talk more about, how the strategies that they use and what might help to account for this. But anyway, the result for now is that none of the longer term teachers reported burnout. Question 3, does teaching subject courses through EMI lead to burnout? In contrast to teaching through the medium of the first language. It says there's diverse perspectives on burnout experiences among EMI teachers, particularly regarding the challenges of teaching in English. Most of the teachers in this study did not report problems with the language, but they mention others who have problems. Now, perhaps I can just say that although maybe these particular ones didn't actually report having problems with the language, elsewhere in the literature, it certainly is a problem that maybe teachers whose own level of English is not particularly high, but suddenly they may be science teachers or maths teachers, but suddenly they have to teach it in English. And actually, some of them do that I've read about in other sources. They find this really difficult. I mean, they don't speak English really. I mean, why should a maths teacher speak English, for heaven's sake? So it can be, although it was not really a big deal in this particular study, it can be in other studies. And one teacher is quite an interesting comment. What particularly catches my attention is how students wake up and pay more attention when I switch to their L1. I think this is the biggest drawback. And indeed, I don't know about any of you guys, but I teach, where I teach here in Cyprus, is on the Turkish side of Cyprus. Almost all of my students speak Turkish. They obviously don't really understand a lot of what I say. For that reason, I work a lot from notes that they can also read. Because otherwise, I am very aware that very little would go in here. But yeah, I think that I do really think that these issues. Okay. Question 4, what factors? Well, they do mention quite a lot of factors, but a lot of them are not specific really to EMI, such as unmotivated students. Well, you get unmotivated students, anywhere, anytime, don't you? It's not particularly EMI specific. But the one that was particularly EMI specific, the main problem is with students, which I've already sort of mentioned really, their level of proficiency in English leads to demotivation. And I don't know about you guys, but I can certainly think of students in my own classes here. Honestly, their English simply isn't good enough. They are desperate, they want to do it, we will work hard, blah, blah, blah. But they have really often very little idea. They don't understand how difficult it's going to be. And but they put a lot of pressure on, and sometimes they are allowed to join English, English only classes, indeed, when frankly they aren't up to it. And the last one, the strategies. Well, as with the previous question, teachers were often similar to those reported by other teachers, such as maintaining a positive mindset. And that applies to any teacher. I think not only English as a motivation, EMI. But for those that were specific to EMI, it mostly revolved around, maintaining your affinity for English, your enthusiasm for the language. Personal, and not just for English, but for globalization and sort of moving beyond the local and so on. And those were the strategies that really were specific to EMI. So I say most of the rest were really the kind of thing, like sort of, getting out on the weekend and having a break, thinking about doing something nice when you've had a bad day, this kind of thing, So those were the research questions and the results. The implications, well, educational institutions should consider implementing support systems for EMI teachers, such as mentoring programs or peer support groups to help address emotional and physical exhaustion and provide a space for sharing experiences and coping strategies. Also, ongoing professional development, focusing on managing workload and improving teaching efficiency. This can equip EMI teachers with tools to mitigate feelings of exhaustion. We can create open lines of communication between teachers and the administration. This can help to identify and address burnout factors more effectively. Regular check-ins and surveys can provide insights into teachers' experiences and needs. And this one got mentioned quite a lot. Should manage teachers' workload, the very heavy workload that teachers do have, which often extend, not just for normal class hours, but you go home with piles of homework, your holidays in inverted commas. Teachers work through their holidays, don't they? In most cases. And also class size. Let's face it, the more bodies there are in a room, the noisier it is, the harder it is to sort of manage misbehaving students, that kind of thing. And administrative responsibilities. I think administration has increased exponentially in recent years. The paperwork where teachers are required to carry on. And also adequate resources should be provided. We can have workshops on stress management and time management. By addressing these recommendations, it's expected that EMI teachers can create a more supportive and sustainable teaching environment that minimizes burnout and enhances job satisfaction. And I think an important point, given that teachers and students actually are interdependent, it isn't one or the other. These improvements are likely to be beneficial for the students as well as the teachers. There are studies that suggest that, sorry, teachers, if you like, happy teachers, well teachers, healthy teachers, this is actually good for the students. It isn't just good for the teachers. It's actually also good for the students. Limitations, well, there's always some suggestions for further research. First of all, of course, sorry, relatively small number. Yeah, like any study, you can always say, well, if we had more, it would be more generalizable. And of course, that's always true. The 9 that we've got, that they got ahead for this study, is not very many. So more to find out whether actually, it makes any difference to the results. Lack of gender diversity. There were only 2 of these participants were women. The other 7 were men. And given the fact that women are often believed to be more prone to burnout than men, I'm not sure if that's true, but it is a common belief. Increasing the female count could produce more meaningful results. Future research, a more diverse range of institutions and cultural contexts, geographical locations, in order to investigate whether findings are consistent across contexts. These could be useful things. These could be useful. And longitudinal studies. Longitudinal studies are, of course, much more difficult to set up and to monitor over a useful period of time, which may well be, certainly at the very least, a full semester, and preferably longer than that. But longitudinal studies could provide insights that you really just can't get from a cross-sectional study or just interviews at a particular point in time. Yeah, that could be really great for someone who is actually able to do it. And I think perhaps something also that I mentioned before, and coming back to, actually the interesting, fewer EMI teachers report burnout. There was only 22.2% of these teachers in the study reported burnout. But the one that I did with my colleagues, there was 75.8%, which was 3/4 of the teachers. So I think what is needed is, just more research on this. Were the 9 that the previous study that I just reported, were those 9, were they typical? Or maybe is English EMI is it actually less stressful than general teachers? You see, the study that I did with my colleagues, which produced 75%, 3/4, it was not only EMI, and of course maybe EMI is mainly in tertiary. But the one that we did was in across the board, tertiary, secondary, and primary. I think I don't know the answer to this, but I think it's an interesting thing. The question is, where does the burnout occur? Where is the main problem? Maybe from the study that I just reported, it would seem, if result can be replicated. That EMI is really not a big problem. It's 20%, 22%, which is not high, but overall it seems to be much higher. The question, therefore, that we have to, is suggest is, where is the problem? Where is the real problem when it comes to burnout? And I'm not sure that has been done. So if any of you are just looking for something to research and interested in picking that one up, please do. Yeah, there are a few references, and thank you for joining me. This is, if you would like to contact me, this is the best email to get me on. And there's also my website. And yeah. All right, Paolo, I think I've finished. Shall I stop sharing so that I can?
Oh, maybe somebody wants to ask a question on a very particular slide, so I keep it up for now. Oh, it's up to you really, but thank you so much for this presentation. I want to ask our audience if they have any questions. Remember that you can either speak up, and if you don't want your face or voice to be recorded, you can just type in the chat. I will read out the question for you. But while we're
I
waiting,
can't actually see the chat right now, so maybe
no worries. I can read it for you. I can read it for you if a question comes up. But I do have a question while I'm waiting for the other members of the audience, and it's actually a little bit of a tangential question because the focus here was on burnout. But you mentioned that although only 22%, only two people out of these nine teachers experienced burnout. Quite a few of them experienced other things. So you mentioned discomfort, for example. And I wanted to ask, although the focus was on burnout, what other emotions came out during the research that teachers associated with EMI?
Kinds of emotions came out of the study, the teachers. Well, let me think. Bear in mind that this was actually not my study. I'm reporting someone else's study. Yes. It's a pity we haven't maybe got Yasemin. Yasemin, isn't it? Is Yasemin with us? I mean, this was actually her study. If she's there, she could be a better one to answer it than me. I'm reporting her study. But then maybe, I mean, I'm very happy for her to do that, but I'm not sure whether she wants to or is able to. The kinds of emotions from the teachers. Well, let me think about how to answer that one. The teachers often feel that they don't get the support that they need. Is this the kind of thing that you're asking about?
Yeah, this kind of information, yeah.
Yeah, and they don't get the support maybe from the administration. Of course, for the administration, it's difficult. They have a school to run, and essentially they give it to teachers to get on with. They often, unfortunately, don't get the support from the parents. I mentioned that a student of my own who said, there's these badly behaved kids. I talk to their parents, but the parents say, this is your teacher, you deal with it. I mean, they don't get the support. Also, there's a matter of their own, which was mentioned earlier in this, their own reluctance to admit to having problems. In case they're seen as being weak or ineffective or not having very bad management or all of these kinds of things that come into it. So these are the kinds of things that the teachers mention as being a problem and the things that they have to deal with. Yeah.
Right. So there's a sense of isolation among these.
Yeah, indeed. Yes, yeah, that's a
Right.
good way of putting it, actually. I feel isolated, yes. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then, of course, just simply exhausted. At the end of the day, they're
Right.
tired. Sometimes they're so tired they can't sleep. Um,
Hmm. Yeah, I get it.
and so the situation just gets worse. And until in the end, they, they give up. The one that I mentioned, and I am able to talk about it because it is a study of my own. Um, a student, three students who from the department, the master's class that I work with, um, they were very happy. They got a job at the local school, and but of the three, one of them burnt out, or I'm not sure if he even got to the end of the first semester. I can't quite remember. Certainly, he didn't see the year to the end. Another one, she got to the end of the year just, but then decided it was too hard, and she left. And even my own student, Ekrem, who was the co-author of the chapter, he considered not continuing, but then decided he would, which I was very happy for that. But even so, he was therefore only a third of the ones who continued. And he talks about having to deal well with kids. ADHD gets mentioned a lot these days. Kids are so active, hyperactive. When I first started teaching, which is a very long time ago, the kids would sit, they'd sit in chairs, and that's what they were expected to do. And I mean, they weren't perfect even then by any means. But compared with the kind of behavior that teachers have to cope with these days, yeah, it's difficult. But I mean, it's difficult to impose on that word. Um, but at the same time, being in a room with all these kids, and then of course, it's not just the teacher that the reaction, but among the kids, among the students themselves, that they upset each other, they bully each other. uh, I don't know. Yeah, it's a bit depressing, isn't it? I'm sorry about that, but I mean, I think the important thing is that we shouldn't just keep on pushing it under the mat. Teachers are leaving. I mean, teachers don't leave for nothing. What can we do about it? What can we do?
Right. And I'm being told in the chat that Professor Kirkes is actually in the audience, is actually part of the audience. One of the authors is.
Right. Sorry. I'm tempted to actually stop sharing so that I can see,
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, absolutely.
so that I can see who's there and maybe have a better idea. Many thanks, dear Carol, for this. Right.
We we also have another question in the chat, which is similar
Well,
to
for the
what you
chat. Well,
just.
let me open the chat. Shall I open the chat down here?
Okay.
Observable. Hi, Prosper.
Yeah,
Wenyun.
this
Um,
one. Yeah.
some positive. Okay. Yes, indeed. I take your point. When
I will read it out for the recording because the chat is not being recorded. Hi, Professor Griffiths. Thank you for the insightful sharing. I'm wondering, besides burnout, whether in your studies there are some positive emotion episode teachers experienced, whether examining their positive emotions would be another angle to provide more implications to better support them. Thanks.
Professor Kirko says, what else? You're right. Okay. Sorry, I've got this one here about positive reactions. Can I answer that one? Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely.
That's when you are quite right, and I'm sorry that what I have mostly had to say. I mean, bear in mind that I have been a teacher for a very long time. I'm still here. I'm still doing it. So even though, frankly, there have been, I can think of at least two occasions when burnout was very close. I have nevertheless, and I'm just talking about my own experience, I have nevertheless kept going. Okay, why do we keep going? And yes, absolutely. And this does come through also the studies, yeah, the positive side. I mean, we all. I mean, having kids who do well. I mean, it's such a joy, isn't it? And I suppose this is part of why we keep going, why we do it. I mean, teaching is it's not boring. It's never boring, is it? I mean, compared with some jobs which honestly are so boring. I mean, teaching is always interesting. You're always interacting and so on. And so, no, I thank you for asking that question, Wendy, and it's actually an important one. And I would like to absolutely say yes, there are positive experiences. However, the particular talk today was about burnout. And I also think that because we are so determined to be positive, which is good in ways, but not everything that happens in life is positive. And also there are issues with teacher burnout. We know that there are, I mean, 3/4 of the teachers in our study, 3/4 said they had experienced burnout. I mean, that's a lot, surely, isn't it? But what are we actually doing about it? And unfortunately, I think I would like to, according to my observations, we're actually doing very little. And one of the reasons, perhaps, for that, or included, is that we never acknowledge it in the first place. And even though what I've said today has been negative, and sorry, I mean, I do hope none of you who are here are considering leaving. Okay. I mean, I am considering, but I'm well past retirement age, all right? I'm allowed to leave, but I'm not leaving because I'm burnt out or because I'm dissatisfied. I'm just leaving because you have to retire sometime. You cannot actually keep going forever. It's not possible. Also, I mean, I have family to consider, and all those other kinds of things. So no, thanks, Wendy, and also I hope everybody else has got that message as well. There is a lot. There is a huge amount. As those of us who have been in the job for a very long time can attest. There's a lot about teaching, which makes it, well, it's what I've done for almost all of my own working life, and still here, and just only retiring because of age. But yeah, go for it. But do think about, and I do really think that especially young teachers need more support than they commonly get. Otherwise, 3/4 of them leave. We lose them. We lose them. It's ridiculous and unkind, honestly. Is there anything else? Yes, the Professor Griffiths. Yes, hi, and Yasmin. Anything now? Many thanks to you, Carol. I think is that all?
Do we have any other questions for Professor Griffiths? Otherwise, we can close here, and you should still have the contact from the slides in case you need to ask any additional questions. Before we leave, I just want to put one last thing in the chat. I put it at the beginning of the seminar, but for those who weren't here, we are going to try and upload the recording on our playlist as soon as possible. And we have one last seminar before the essentially before the end of the month. It's going to be this Sunday. Uh, you will find the information on this link here. Just pay attention because it's the time zone is the seminar is set in Japan, so it might be quite early for viewers in the Western Hemisphere, but if possible, to register there as well. It's also going to focus on emotions, actually, so that's why we are advertising it. But otherwise, thank you again, Professor Griffiths. Really interesting topic, and I hope we will hear more about this in the future. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I will stop the recording now.